Good evening. I want to welcome each one of you here for this special time that we have been looking forward to. And so some of you may have gotten some last-minute invitations, and some of you may have been looking forward to it for a while. And you know, this church loves to do the type of things like we were doing yesterday with a dental clinic. Some of you were there and making new friends in the community. So we hope that you make a new friend tonight and that you can greet somebody and learn a new name. But if you've been here before, welcome back. And if this is your first time at the Northview Seventh-day Adventist Church, I want to welcome you to this facility. We have restrooms right out there, water available, but make yourselves at home. You're prepared to have your heart moved tonight. We have a special speaker with us tonight, a very special guest, and she has traveled in a bit and comes to us from Boise, Idaho. And we're so glad to have Sheree Peters with us tonight. And she travels all over the country, sharing things such as she's sharing tonight, has a television program that she has shared her testimony for many years, things that she has learned from her own experience, as well as the people that she ministers to and the people that she helps. And so we're so glad to have Sheree Peters with us here in Spokane, Washington. And she's going to be sharing a little bit of her journey tonight. And she was going down a certain road in life, and God got a hold of her and was able to get her on a different path. And if you've ever given up on yourself or wonder if there's hope, tonight is going to be a great night for you as you hear her story and maybe stories of others she's worked with. And as she shares principles with us throughout this week, celebrating life and recovery and the changing face of addictions. And this isn't just for those of us that have labeled ourselves or confessed that we're addicted, but also those that have addictive habits and thinkings and patterns that haven't labeled ourselves. And so this is for the benefit of all tonight. And we are all ministering to friends also that may be stuck in cycles and circles. And so we are grateful. This will be very applicable. I want to welcome the online audience. Thank you for those that are watching and for tuning in. And so Sheree just arrived in town last night, and she is spending the week up here with us. So tonight is the opening night, and we go through Friday evening and also Saturday morning. And so prepare to be moved, and when the program's done this evening, feel free to linger a few minutes, and as I said, make a new friend and enjoy the people that are here. Many of you will, if not all, get to meet Sheree after her presentation as well. So if it's all right, why don't you bow your heads, and we'll ask God to be with us this evening. Heavenly Father, thank you that we can be here to have a certain kind of encounter with our Creator and to understand your love better. Many of us are at the position where we want to confess that we need a divine touch and something beyond ourselves. And I pray that as we listen tonight, that we can understand there's a Savior and a Redeemer in this world, and that there's hope for each one of us, and there's hope for people that we are ministering to, and that you will have your way in each one of our lives. We pray in Jesus' name, amen. I want to welcome tonight Sheree Peters, and thank you for sharing with us this evening.
I don't know why, but I always get nervous when I do these. And I've done them like a million times, but every time my palms sweat and I shake. But I'm glad to be here. Is there anybody here, and just move your shoulders if you don't want to raise your hand. Is there anybody here from the recovery community? Oh, nice, okay. A couple. And I'm a heroin addict in recovery, and so I always start out with that. And so I am from the recovery community, and I am so glad you're here. When I first got into recovery, I didn't think I would get a week. Well, I didn't think I would get a day. You know what I mean? And I didn't think I'd get a couple days, and then I got a week, and I'm like wanting to celebrate. Not that anything was changed, but I wanted to celebrate. And then I got a couple weeks, and then I got a month, then I got a year, and now I've been in recovery since 1979. It's just ridiculous to me. So this week we're going to talk about recovery issues. We're going to talk about the changing face of addiction. I haven't met many people that don't have an addiction. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody. Has anybody met a workaholic? Has anybody met, does anybody have a credit card that's maxed out? Spendaholic? Does any eating disorders? Has anybody met a religious addict? Like when they call you, you think, I'm not getting that. You know what I mean? It's like you've got all these addictions, and we only think of sometimes drugs and alcohol as being an addiction, but I think I cover addiction in a number of different ways, so we're going to cover that this week. We're going to talk about the changing face of addiction. Is it changing? If I said 61% of the world has an addiction right now that's changing their neurochemistry, what would the addiction be? Devices. It's changing their neurochemistry, and we're not even hardly paying attention to that. And so we're going to talk about some of that stuff. We're going to talk about, what do you do? Anybody have a crazy family? So, we're going to talk about crazy families. We're going to talk about just a number of that kind of things. Can we be restored? And that's one thing is my favorite thing. Can you come out of an addiction and literally get on the other side of it? So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself tonight. Hopefully I'll get to know some of you guys as we go on with the week, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. My mom was 14 when she had me. How old are you? Oh, 28. You look like a baby. I'm sorry. I know. You'll be glad later on. But my mom was 14 when she had me. I was her second child, right? And when she had my sister, for some reason, their parents allowed them to get together, and they got an apartment. They thought everything was going to be wonderful. They would have a baby, and it would just be perfect, and all that kind of stuff. My dad was 15, and he was already an alcoholic. Anybody drink in high school? He was already an alcoholic. And my mom started high school when she was 12 because she was smart, and they just put her up grades, right? And so my dad, who was alcoholic, saw my mom and said, oh, baby. You know what I mean? He just got her drunk, slept with her, she got pregnant. She realized almost right away that this was not a good thing. My dad got abusive. He was angry at her because I have to quit school because of you. I can't keep a job because of you. And my dad would do something like he'd try to get a job, and the boss would tell him something. He'd just, excuse me, are you talking to me? I'm just curious, are you talking to me? And he would just get fired by the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? Sorry. So my dad wasn't able to keep a job, so he would come back to my mom, get angry at her, and then just bash her head into something, right? I'm not going to ask, has anybody been in a violent relationship, but those are so intense. So he got more and more violent. My mom was holding her baby by this time, and then she found out she was pregnant again. And she said, no way, I'm not doing this again. And so she tried to self-abort in a number of different ways, jumping on things, taking hot baths, taking pills, hitting her stomach, trying to trash herself. Somebody said if you can puncture the sac that the baby's in, you'll miscarriage. She just cut herself, right? I was born. And she said, I could not look at you. I didn't want to hold you. In the hospital, they even said something like, do you want to see your baby? She's like, no, do you, name her, any of that kind of stuff. My mom said she couldn't do any of that. When she took me home, she said, I would sit in the hallway and listen to you scream, and I would sit in the hallway and cry, just bawl. I couldn't go in there. I felt, I didn't know what I would do. I couldn't go in there. I don't remember my mom and I ever touching. Sometimes I'll see people with little babies or little kids, and they're holding them and stuff. I don't remember any of that. My mom withdrew more and more. She had 5 kids before she was in her 20s. So my mom had one baby after another after another. My dad got more and more into drinking. The first time he was caught molesting me, I was 3 months old. I don't know what it feels like to have a dad or have a mom. You know, I just have no idea. I know that I would always try to get my mom's attention. You know, I thought if I was funny enough, she would say, "Come sit right here." And I would try to be funny. I would try to joke with her. I would try to sing a song, you know, and it never worked. I would try whatever it took to get some acceptance from my mom. And what she would say to me is, "Why do you always have to hang on me? You know, why do you always need attention?" And I remember from the time I was little, I said, I don't know. But I felt it. Like, I want to be touched. I want you to touch me. I want you to hold me. But I didn't know how to say that at 2, 3, 4, and 5 years old. My house was, how do I put this? The sink busted, the bathroom sink busted, and was fixed 13 years later. And we had a 1-bathroom house. If we brushed our teeth, it was in the bathtub. You know, I don't remember having to brush my teeth, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But it was like our house was just that house. Do you have drug houses around here? Do you know which ones they are? The lawn's not mowed, the bushes aren't taken care of, that kind of thing. And so our house was that house. But what I didn't know is people tend to not let their kids play with the druggies' kids, right? So I wasn't getting attention at home, but I couldn't play with you either because we were those kids, right? And so the only thing I knew is something was desperately wrong with me, and I just didn't know what it was. There was no religion in our background at all. And my mom was probably more of a prescription drug addict. She did a lot of like uppers and stuff, but she was more prescription. My dad was more alcoholic. He got kicked out when I was 4, and my mom moved a bartender in. Has anybody been a bartender or lived with one? They are so fun. Sometimes they're fun. So he was really fun, and he came in. He didn't beat my mom. He didn't molest us. And he would teach us games that were really fun. Like, he would teach us one game. Raise your hand if you've ever played this, where you stick frozen peas up your nose and shoot them at each other. No one, not one? If you say that in prison, you have hands go up. Like, yeah, I know that game. But anyhow, so he would teach us that kind of stuff. And the only time he didn't play that game with someone is if they had a cold. Because you had like snot dripping, you know, it's like, I'm not playing with you. But he would teach us that kind of stuff. He would also have, like, we wad up hamburger. Hey, how are you, buddy? We would wad up hamburger and we'd put it in our hand and go, and stick it on the ceiling and see who it falls on. You get points if it falls on someone. You know, so I just want you to imagine how dirty our house was. If you walked in the bathroom, you literally stuck to the floor. It was linoleum and it just wasn't cleaned. My husband, when I met him years into my recovery, he wouldn't go to the bathroom at my mom's house. And I thought, you think you're too good for my mom? You think you're too good for my mom to go to the bathroom at my mom's house? I was so mad at him. And he was just like, I'm so sorry, hon. And the first time I looked at that bathroom from someone else's eyes, you know, that it was filthy, everything's filthy, the floor is filthy, and I just thought, man, I'm sorry, right? And Child Protective Services would try to come and take us. I don't know why they never did. But they never did. And it was just sad. I remember in my childhood just being sad. I think my first suicide attempt was right after. I had an aunt that was amazing. When I was little, I went to my grandmother's house for Christmas. We went every Christmas to grandmother's house. That's the only time I saw my aunts and uncles, really. And she came up to me and she said, "You are so beautiful." And she touched my face. And I started crying. And she just thought, "What?" And she picked me up and cuddled me, right? And I just think my whole life I wanted someone to touch me, but no one had. And she just did it. She just did it. And from that point on, I was one of her favorites. And I think that now looking back, she must have known something was wrong, and she just would tell me jokes and hang out. She was very, very funny. And not only was she very funny, she was an actress. And I mean, serious actress. Her son was in The Little Rascals. Does anybody know that? Yeah. He was in The Little Rascals. He did My Little Chickadee with W.C. Fields and Mae West, and she did some bit parts, but her son was the one that was into acting more. But when I would see her, she would have all these stories, and she would have all these jokes, and I couldn't wait. I think I survived my childhood because of this woman. I don't know if anybody has someone like that in your life, but I survived because of her. And she would tell me a joke every time I saw her every year. And I'm going to tell you the joke, but you have to say pea soup after everything I say. Like, what'd you have for breakfast? All right. What'd you have for lunch? What'd you have for dinner? What'd you do all night? All right. And I would just laugh. I thought it was the funniest thing. Did you get it? You didn't get it? You will. So anyhow, so I would just laugh and laugh and laugh. And my sisters and brothers would say, "That's not even funny. It's not funny." And then we would laugh harder because they would just say, "That was so stupid. It's not funny." And so we would just crack up. And she was just like that. And I remember her having stories, and she was funny. And, you know, if anybody wants to look up my uncle, his name is George Billings. If you want to look him up, Google him. But anyhow, so when I was 8, I was going over to my grandmother's house, couldn't wait to see her, got out of my car, and not my mom's car, my car, got out of my car and looked around, and her car wasn't there. And I said to my mom, "Where's Annie Kay's car?" And all she said was, "Your aunt is dead, and I don't want you crying because you'll upset your grandmother." And I thought, dead? What does that mean? You know? And I think I knew what that meant, but at that moment, I was thinking, well, what I said to my mom is she couldn't be dead because she would have taken me with her. She wouldn't have left me here by myself, right? And I started crying. My mom said to wait outside, and I'm just going to help you understand this a little bit because I was so resentful of this for years. But does anybody remember a time that if somebody's suicide, nobody talked about it? Raise your hand if you remember that time. No one talked about it. You could die of heart disease. You could die of a lot of things, car accidents, and everybody would talk about it. But if you committed suicide, it was silent. And my aunt had killed herself. My aunt was bipolar. I didn't know that. So if you are bipolar, please don't make any decisions when you are depressed. But she killed herself during a depression. And I sat outside and just cried. I couldn't figure out, like, what am I going to do next? Like, what's my next move going to be? And I don't want to go inside, and I don't want to upset my grandmother, but I'm so sad. And I sat outside, and every time I stopped crying, I would start crying again. I just remember something and start crying again. And the clouds kind of parted. You know how sometimes the clouds will part and sun will filter through them? That happened. And I heard in my head, not a voice, but I heard, "What did you have for breakfast?" And I said, "Pea soup," you know? And I don't know why, but I thought, it's going to be okay. And I went in the house. Everybody did Christmas like they normally do. Nobody said much at all. And when I got home, I thought, well, I'm going to kill myself, right? And I figured I couldn't figure out how to do it. Like, how do you kill yourself? And so I thought, well, I'll just climb up on the house and jump off. Because I've fallen on my bike on the driveway, and I felt like it almost killed me. So I'll just jump up on the house. And it took me forever to climb up. It's one story. But it took me forever to climb up, and I leaped off. But before I climbed up there, I had put a mattress down. Because I don't like pain at all. So I landed on this mattress, and I remember thinking, Not even hurt. I mean, not even scratched. And I'm laying there like, okay, I'm not dead, and I'm not even scratched, you know? And somebody comes out and says, what are you doing? Go play. And I said, oh, okay, you know? And shortly after that, I was limping all the time. And my leg was hurting. And so I thought maybe it was something from the jump. They finally took me to the doctors, took me to Children's Hospital in Long Beach, California, found out I have a disease called Perthes Disease. Is there any medical folks in the building? Has anybody ever heard of Perthes Disease? It's men get it, boys get it more than girls, but it's a disease where from the time you're born, your bones are like sponges, and they get harder as you get older. Well, luckily, they're like sponges for the person that's birthing you. But as you get older, they harden unless you have Perthes disease, and then it stays like a sponge. And so they used to put you in a full body cast, right? And I mean a full body cast until your bones kind of caught up with each other. The year that I got diagnosed with it, they stopped doing that. They started putting you in braces and crutches, and you just did that for 2 or 3 years. So I ended up going to Children's Hospital. That is another thing that saved my life. So the first time I went somewhere where the nurses and doctors looked at me in the face. What was your name again? And I'm looking around like, are they talking to me? You know, I mean, it was so, like, I felt like they listened to me. They talked directly to me. When they touched me, it was safe. You know, I had the nurses and doctors having to do different exams, and they were just safe. And I thought, you know what? I needed it desperately. I don't know if anybody's in the field, but I was an abused kid, and I needed it desperately. They said I had to come in, after I got the braces and crutches, I had to come in 3 days a week into Children's Hospital. And you know what I did 3 days a week? Went swimming. I thought, how hard is this? They had a pool, and they would do range of motion and different things in the pool with us and some other kids. I was probably the most normal-looking kid there. And I say that because when I took my braces and crutches off, you really couldn't tell that anything was wrong. The other kids had their hydrocephalic. They had limbs that were really intense. But when I first started doing the swim therapy, I thought, this is so cool. I get out of school. I get to go swimming. Everybody's nice. And my mom has to take me, right? And during this time, she's going to learn to like me. And I mean, everything was going my way, except for one thing. The rest of the kids, most of the kids, got to go into the pool on this hydraulic lift. And the hydraulic lift, they would put the wheelchair on it. They would take the hydraulic lift over the pool, and they would lower it into the pool. And I thought, I had to walk in. I thought, how fair is that? And I remember just being really upset about that. So I said, you know what? I should be on that lift. It's just not fair. And they said, you have legs. And I said, that you can't hold that against me. I mean, that's not fair. So the kids voted, and I got to do the lift. So I would run out to the lift, and I would just ride it in and down. And one little kid, he was kind of like you, Pastor, a really cheeky guy. And he said, hey, do you want to race across the pool? I said, no. Are you chicken? I'm not chicken. I'm not racing you. It's like, unless you're chicken, let's race. I said, I'm not. And he said, oh, come on. I'm not racing you. And finally, I got so mad at him. I said, you know what? I'm not very nice. I'm not giving you a head start. And he said, okay. And I said, has anyone ever told you you have no arms? He had little fingers sticking out of his shoulder. That's it. And I thought, I'm going to beat you, you know, because how do you swim with that, you know? And so we jumped in the pool, and he's like a little dolphin. And he beat me. Everybody's laughing because he does that with every new kid. The next new kid, he said the same thing, want to race across the pool, and I'm busting up because I'm thinking they're going to say no, and he's going to beat them as soon as they get in. But I had the best time, except for at school. I started getting teased because I have braces and crutches on. Did anybody realize that? That I didn't even get noticed without braces and crutches. But with braces and crutches, all of a sudden I'm teased. And I thought, I can't deal with this because, I mean, my home life was horrible. If you live in a house full of addicts, they are up all night and sleep during the day. It was just horrible, right? And now I'm at school, which is the only place I can escape to, and now I'm getting teased. So I thought, I got to figure something out. So I did, and I saw a hallway, and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to kind of run down the hallway. And the braces, you can lock them, or you can unlock them, and it bends when you walk, right? So I locked the brace. I ran and hit the ground and pole vaulted myself about 20 feet. And a guy said, hey, I'd like to do that. And I said, how much money do you have? And I started renting out the braces and crutches for people's lunch money. So I had a little business going, and I didn't get teased anymore. But I've had a total hip replacement because of that. So if you have braces, keep them on. But so things were going well. My mom, like I said, she had to drive me to the hospital. I thought for sure we were going to actually connect. We had to, every once in a while, but this is not going to make any sense to people that don't have addictive families. I don't remember growing up ever sitting at a kitchen table, ever. We very seldom ate together as a family. Sometimes we would just go get whatever and eat whenever. I mean, it was just like it wasn't a normal thing. What was on our kitchen table to this day is still on our kitchen table. My mom has about 15 cats, and cat dishes are on the table. And so when we just didn't eat together. So every once in a while, across the street from Children's Hospital was a pancake place. And we would go for breakfast. And I couldn't believe it. I'm sitting having breakfast with my mom. I couldn't hardly even breathe. I just couldn't even breathe. And then my mom would get irritated. Has anybody ever tried not to irritate the people around you? I know it's tough. So I'm going to do everything right. But she would get really irritated. And she would say, what are you going to have? And as soon as somebody asks you something when you're nervous, your brain goes blank. I thought, I don't know. And that would make her irritated more. And I'm thinking, it's a pancake house. I'll just have pancakes every day. So if you ever have me over, don't give me pancakes. It's traumatizing. But I had pancakes, and my mom would say something like, you chew just like a cow. And I'd think, oh, I'm sorry. So I tried not to chew. I just swallow. I just would not chew. I mean, I tried everything. One time she came up and she said that her and my dad, now not my dad because her boyfriend, her and her boyfriend talked and felt like it would be better for me to go live at an aunt's house because with the Children's Hospital and the thing with the hip and all that kind of stuff is that I was taking time away from the rest of the family. And my aunt lived in Canada. My mom and I lived in California. And so I thought, no. If I can't get you to love me right here, 3,000 miles away, you are going to forget me. And I promised everything. I'll do all the chores. I promise I won't ever be bad. I mean, I just did as much as I could, just promised everything. Like, I promise. And she said, no, this is going to be better for you. And one day they packed me up, sent me to live with an aunt. This aunt was about 70 years old. She was diabetic, overweight. Her dog was more overweight than her because every once in a while she would not eat something and give it to the dog. But she met me at the door, and it's like, you can stay here as long as you want. And I screamed, that's kidnapping. You cannot keep me. You need to send me home. I hate you. And I mean, I was horrible to her. Every time she tried to do something, I was horrible. One time she came up. I wish I could do this to someone, but it's pretty obnoxious. And she came up and she just grabbed my mouth, and she asked me to open my mouth, and I said no. And I held my mouth as tight as I could. Like, hold your mouth as tight as you can. That's what I did, tighter, tighter, tighter. And she tried to open it, and I held it tighter. And I'm screaming at her, and then she would open it, and I'd hold it tighter. And she finally got my mouth open, and she said, "Your teeth are all green." Like they had plaque all over them. And we need to brush your teeth. And if you do it with baking soda, we can get that off. And I started screaming. I don't even have to brush my teeth at home. And she's like, "Well, you're going to brush your teeth here." And I remember, even to this day, me screaming that to her. I don't even have to brush my teeth at home, somehow thinking that made sense, right? And she drugged me in the bathroom. And every time I screamed, what do you think she did? Brush my teeth every time. I would try to hold my mouth shut, and then I would scream at her, and I was just angry. I stayed angry the whole time I was there. After about 6 months, I stopped talking and didn't talk again until they sent me home. I didn't talk at school. I didn't talk at home. They finally decided they would send me home. When they sent me home, my stepdad was trying to not drink. I don't know if anybody has been around alcoholics when they try not to drink, but it's really intense at times. And I got home, my girlfriend came over. We were playing on a fence that was along the driveway of our house. And it was not well put together anyway. It was just like you have two pieces of wood with cement blocks, and piece of wood, cement blocks. And the cement was kind of cracked, so it wasn't really strong. And we were walking on that, and that fence broke. And my mom's boyfriend pulled in the driveway, and he said, "You know what? The happiest times of our lives was when you were gone, and we do not want you back here." And I had just turned 11. And I remember standing there thinking, what am I doing? They don't want me here. And I started crying, and my friend that was over said, "You know, that's just Mac. You know how he is. He didn't mean that." But everything in me knew, for whatever reason, that he meant that. They meant that. And I just wept and wept and wept. But I thought in my head, somebody had said, the reason people do drugs and alcohol is they don't want to deal with their problems. Has anybody heard that? That came in my head, and I thought, well, I better find me some drugs then. And I went out trying to find drugs. Just imagine who would give drugs to an 11-year-old, right? Are they safe? So I found somebody that would give drugs to me. It was the first time I took a drug. I took a lot of it. I didn't feel like killing myself. And I didn't feel like killing you. So it's kind of a win-win. And I remember thinking that, man, if this is all I have to do to survive, I've just got to say hi, right? And that's what my plan was. And I set out to do that. I was pregnant the next year. My mom said the same thing her mom said to her. You need to get married. I was a kid, right? The person that took responsibility. And I don't know why you guys need to even hear this, but I think we need to hear it because there's so many people like me. Somebody says, you're really unusual. Nope. All over the world, there's kids like me. So anyhow, the person that took responsibility for the pregnancy was in the Navy. He decided that we were going to get married. We were going to go to Mexico and get married. I don't think it's legal there either. By the time we got everything arranged and we were heading out to get married, I was 8.5 months pregnant. I was 104 pounds. You could not tell I was pregnant. And I went in the hospital with labor. So we're trying to do one thing. I go into labor. They didn't even believe I was pregnant, for one. And I had a boy and a girl. I had twins. The twins could fit in your hand. The girl was stillborn. The boy fought for about 8 hours. But he was less than a pound. And the doctor came in and said, do you realize that this is your fault? The drugs you took, you're smoking your brains out, that these babies are dead because of what you did. And I remember thinking, for one, I just wanted to kill him, but I thought, you know what? In my mind, I thought, I'm going to finally have a family. and I'm going to be the best mother ever. That's what I was thinking. The same time I was doing drugs. Didn't put this together at all. So when he said that, I just remember thinking that you're wrong. I love these babies, right? And I ended up, after the boy died, I said to my mom, I didn't need to get married because I don't have these babies. And she said, no, you need to still get married. And so we did. We got married. I moved in with his mother. He went overseas for 6 months. Do you think his mom liked me? I mean, this is like a nightmare. I was now, at that time, I had the babies in June. I turned 13 in August. I was a 13-year-old drug addict that just ruined her son's life. She could hardly look at me. She would shake when I had to join them for dinner. She tried the best she could. She actually tried to be nice, but it was really difficult for her. I was younger than her youngest son, married to her older son. And but I decided at one point, I thought, you know what? I'm an adult now, so I don't have to stay here. And I left. So I ended up homeless in Los Angeles at 13 years old. I've looked at the stats. The year I ended up on the streets of LA, there were 80,000 kids like me. 80,000. Not 100, not a couple hundred, but 80,000. And does anybody, raise your hand if you know why you don't see them on the streets. No? That's a good one, though. They hide. Anything else? They're what? What did he say? Yeah, you know what, that's a good one too, but no, if they were in an orphanage, you are so sweet. I love him. Yes. They had to blend in, really nice thought. They are funneled into industries that are very dark. They usually are picked up within 24 hours. You will not see them again until they're strung out or crazy. And so I want that to settle with you. If somebody sees a child on the street of a major city, they funnel them into some trafficking industries. Yeah. 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 I was picked up within a couple hours. And I was picked up with somebody saying, I want to help you. You look scared. Right? And so the next 10 years was pretty dark for me. If I met somebody from the church, it was usually because they have darker addictions. If I met police officers, I met nobody that was safe during that 10 years. I was kidnapped, I was beat up, I had teeth knocked out, I was strung out, because remember I said, if I have to survive, I just have to be high. And so that was my goal every day, is how do I get high? How do I get enough drugs to survive this next thing? I was kidnapped by a group of bikers that were doing initiations for new members. And they took 3 girls, homeless girls, from the streets. I didn't know what they were going to do. They said they were going to go camping. Raise your hand if you've been camping. My mom's boyfriend would say, have you ever been camping? And they'd be smoking weed. It's so fun, amazing. And we'd all sit around and listen to these stories. They never took us, but they'd have these incredible stories about what it was like to go camping. And so when they said they were going camping, I was excited, like I can't wait. And initiation for new members, they would do horrendous things to these kids on the street. One girl didn't survive. I had my nose broken, my cheek busted. I was covered with blood. And the only reason I survived is every time I got hit, I hit somebody back. And what they said at the end of that, the last time I got hit, I felt teeth get knocked out. And I was just kind of trying to figure out how damaged I was. And the guy that hit me came over and said, wow, I really like you. You're pretty gutsy. I'd like you to be my old lady. And I thought, is he asking me out? Because I'm thinking, no, thank you. But he said, oh, that wasn't a question. You are now my property. And so my experiences on the street were not easy, and they were not safe. I think I would choose the safest of the options that I had. By the time I was in my 20s, I was so burned out. I was strung out. I was just burned out. I didn't want to do anything. I lived in a drug house. Drug houses, anybody could come and go. I worked in clubs, and I sold drugs. And one drug deal went bad. $11,000 was missing. The guy that fronts the money, the guy that it was his business as an attorney out of Newport Beach, he never did a drug in his life, but it's his business. Other people ran the drugs for him. And $11,000 was stolen. They thought I had done it, and they came over with a gun. Put a gun right to my head and said, I'm going to blow your head off, and nobody steals from me, na, 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 and was screaming. And I had been up high for about a week, freebasing coke, and that sounds weird to a normal person, but that's pretty normal for drug addicts. But I'd been up high, so when I crashed. And so I was coming to, trying to figure out what's happening, and I realized this guy has a gun, and he's going to blow my head off. And the only thing I wanted to say to him is, thank you so much, because I'm done. Go ahead. And when somebody's going to blow your head off, you have to brace for that, right? But I remember wanting to say, you know what? I've been trying to do this my whole life. Do it. And he just kept screaming. And I thought, you still screaming? And he's still screaming. And I thought, he's just trying to scare me. And I literally thought, my next breath scares me. Please pull the trigger. And he said, are you crazy? Are you my psychiatrist? Pull the trigger. Are you a little girl? Do you want me to get you some help? I mean, I tried everything. Like, can I help you with this? Because I'm done. I am done. And he just kept screaming. He finally left, and he said, I'll give you a week to find that money. I didn't take the money, but I'll give you a week to find that money. And if you don't have it, I'm going to come back and blow your head off. And I said, you're not going to blow anybody's head off. If you were going to shoot me, you would shoot me now. And I'm screaming as I'm walking out, like, can I do anything to get him to change his mind? And, of course, he did not. I remember at that point just trying to figure out, I have to take a breath. I don't want to. I have to do the next move. I don't want to. I have to get up and go about the day. I don't want to. And I thought, I better find someone to help me, right? Where do you think I would go for help? Anybody? Somebody says church. I wish. Rehab center. No. I went to my mom's house. And I remember going to my mom's house and coming in, and the house was dark. If you've ever seen an addict's house, it's usually dark. The house was dark. My dad, my mom's boyfriend, is watching football, smoking some weed. He has, I should tell you this story about my dad. He has a recliner with two end tables, one on each side. And if you want to see a picture, I'll show you tomorrow, but one on each side. And he's got all his paraphernalia right here. The armchair, the recliner, or whatever, you can open it up, and it has compartments on both sides. Anybody want to guess what's in those compartments? A lighter, roach clips, I mean, all that kind of stuff. And I go in, and it's the same. The house is dark. Everybody is withdrawn or high or into their own thing. And I remember them saying, you know, how are you? And what do you think I said? Fine. I'm less than 100 pounds. I have teeth knocked out. I'm strung out on heroin. I could barely read. And when they said, how are you? I said, fine. I don't know why we do that. Raise your hand if you've ever said that when somebody said, how are you? And you want to hang yourself in the garage or blow your head off. And it's just crazy, right? And so I said, fine, and my mom starts talking, my dad starts talking, and at one point, someone says, you know, we're so proud of you. And I thought, did I miss something? And I thought, what for? Well, you never came home and asked for money. I was 12. You know what I mean? I was a baby. You should have came and got me. You should have found me. And I remember thinking, I got to go because I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And I politely said, you know, I got to run, and nice seeing everybody. And my mom said, wait a minute, I have something for you. And she went in the other room, and she got a manila envelope. She brought it out, and she handed it to me. When she handed it to me, she said, just take this with you. And I said, oh. I took it, and she said, I went back to school since the last time I saw you. And I thought, shut up. No way. You went back to school? She said, yeah. And I remember my dad was an alcoholic that beat her. She had 5 kids before she was in her 20s, early 20s. And I thought, that's amazing that you went back to school. And I really felt proud of her. Like, that's amazing. What did you take in school? And she said, I'm going to be a social worker. No way! There's no way! I remember, you know, when you see a newspaper thing or a news thing where somebody is stabbed like 300 times? That crime made sense to me at that moment. I wanted to stab her right in the neck. Excuse my, I don't mean to say that because that's probably not nice, but I wanted to kill her in every way I could think of. I wanted to say, you know what? My sister is in the garage making meth. All her teeth are rotted out. She's 65, 75 pounds. My other sister's a stripper and has a porn site. My other sister's alcoholic and a druggie. My brother's alcoholic. My dad is a crack addict. My dad is now dead. But you might not be social worker material. And I don't want to be disrespectful. But in my day and age, raise your hand if this makes sense to you, we never talked back to our parents. You know what I'm saying? Not true nowadays. But in those days, you didn't talk back even if they said the craziest things. So all I said was, good luck with that. What can you say? So I literally said, I have to go because I can't breathe. I get in the car. I get back to the drug house, and there's a naked guy in the living room playing air guitar, high on some kind of hallucinogenic, right? And I want to scream, get out of here. But when you live in a drug house, it is not your house. You cannot say that. And has anybody been around heroin addicts? If they get a really good high, they throw up. Not all the time, but a lot of the time. So I go in the bathroom, and someone has thrown up all over the place. If you have meth addicts, they will clean it up with a toothbrush, you know. I mean, but, you know, it's like it was just a mess. I walk in the room, and I'm thinking, I just want to take myself out, and I can't figure out how to do it. I don't like pain, so I don't want to cut my wrist. I don't have enough drugs. We just did a major drug deal. I didn't have enough that I would actually die, and I'm trying to figure out how to do it. And I thought, you know what? I have some syringes, and I'll just pump air into my veins until my heart explodes. I don't know if that would work, but that was my plan. And as I was thinking about doing that, I saw the manila envelope, because when I walked in the room, I threw it onto the bed, right? And I saw it, and I wanted to go over and rip it up into 1,000,000 pieces. I wanted to rip it up until my hands bled. I was so angry. I thought, what is she going to tell me, that she doesn't love me? She thinks I don't know that? And what is she, you know, I knew it was something she wanted me to know, but I didn't want to know anything. I thought, today, I don't care, because by the end of the day, I'm going to take myself out, so I really don't care. And I went to grab it, and has anybody felt God speak to them? No one? Well, maybe we should have a different seminar. Okay, good. But anyhow, so as I went to grab it, I felt the presence of God. No voices, no anything odd, but I felt the presence of God, and I felt safe for the first time in my life. In my life, and it got me off guard. I just remember feeling safe. I felt like whatever And I don't know why I knew it was God, but I thought, you know what? I got an impression. I want you to open the envelope. So instead of tearing it up, I opened it, and my mom had to write an autobiography in her social work program. If anybody's taken any of those psych classes, you write your life story. My mom wrote her life story. She got an A. And in red, there was an A. And it said, please give this to Sheree. And I was functionally illiterate, so I didn't get through this paper really well, but I got through this paper the best I could, and it was my mom's story. She was molested as a kid. Her mom was alcoholic. Her mom dropped her off in different relatives' house, and she was raised by the same auntie that she sent me to until she was 12 and then brought to the U.S. by her mom, who met another alcoholic, and told that story. And talked about my dad, talked about the other children, and on the third page, on the top of the third page, it said the only reason I survived is I took all my anger and hatred out on my second child and I ruined her life. And I couldn't even breathe. I thought, I wanted to scream to the entire world, what is wrong with me? What did I do? And I just wanted to scream that. I couldn't figure it out my whole life, and all of a sudden I read that sentence. The only way I survived is I took my anger and hatred out on this child. She is now homeless. She's strung out on heroin, and it just talked a little bit about myself. And I started crying, and I heard not a voice, but I felt that God was saying to me, this was never your fault. And if you want to change your life, I can help you change your life. And I cried. I had 42 warrants for my arrest at that moment. I was fairly illiterate, functionally illiterate. I was strung out on heroin. I had teeth missing. And I remember thinking, even God can't change this. And what's God going to do? And this is for anybody that has a Christian background. I believe God showed me an image that I saw but didn't see. I don't know how he does that even, of who I am the day after resurrection. Not the day after I pull a needle out of my arm, but the day after all of this is over, I am his child, and I am lovely, and I'm not a molested kid. I'm not a recovering addict. I'm clothed in light, and I'm standing in the presence of God. And I just broke. Like, what do I have to do for that? Just trust me. Just stand up. I don't even know where to do recovery. I've been doing drugs for 10 years, every day, you know. What do I do? And so I called the only straight person I know, had other addictions but not drugs, and I said, I need to do recovery at someone's house. Do you know anyone? And he said, well, let me make some calls. And he called, and his sister in Placerville, California, said, she can come to my house. I don't know why she said that. It was 7.5, 8 hours from LA. I don't know, maybe even a little bit longer. And I show up. I'm strung out. I'm a mess. But I didn't take any drugs for the entire time. Any addicts in the room? Are you feeling sorry for me? Nothing. I was like shaking. She answers the door and she said, I'm so glad you're here. I just want you to know I love you. And I thought, are you going to hand me a Christian tract? Because I'm just trying to withdraw. Like, I'm just trying to get my life together. I don't want to hear anything. And of course I don't say that, but I'm just thinking, what do you mean you love me? You don't even know me. And I remember just being angry at that. My mom doesn't even love me. And I don't need any of that stuff right now. Do you tell her that? She does, you know. Oh. But anyhow, so she just said, so she says, come on in. I come in, and I'm trying to be polite, but I am literally shaking. She puts me in the living room, and she puts on some Christian hymns. I was dying. I'm thinking somebody's got to shut that off. She's like, no, it's soothing. And I thought, it's not soothing. It's irritating. And I didn't say that, of course, but I just want to say I want to break this. Like, stop that. It was two twins harmonizing with each other on these hymns. And I'm dying, and I'm thinking, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And she said, I'm going to get ready for the Sabbath. And she goes to the kitchen. I don't know what that means, right? So I go in the kitchen and I said, excuse me, do you have any coffee? She said, no. Do you have any tea? Dr. Pepper? Pepsi? Do you have any chocolate? Because you know what, druggies, we're also alcoholics, and there's a lot of sugar and alcohol. We're withdrawing from everything. Do you have any sugar? I'll just... And she says, no, I'm a vegan, vegetarian. I said, what is that? And she says, I don't eat anything that has a mother. I said, I don't want to eat your mother. I just want some coffee. Like, I'm not sure what you're saying. And she's looking at me like, would you like some water? And I said, oh, I can't stomach that. Too much chlorine. And we think it makes sense. I always say that. We think it somehow makes sense. But anyhow, she says, I have some lentils. And I thought, who would eat that? Look how nasty that looks, And then she keeps explaining this vegan thing. And I started laughing because I thought, this is how you end up with a vegan vegetarian if you really misbehaved in this life. So I thought, I'm actually in hell. And this woman was the most incredible woman I've ever met in my life. She fed me fruit and vegetables. She made me shower 5 or 6 times a day to get the drugs off my skin. Because when you start withdrawing, you will seep drugs onto your skin, and you'll smell it and relapse. She came in one day, and I was having the worst day, and she said, you know what, the sun's out. We need to go take a hike. I said, you could take a hike. I'm withdrawing. I'm withdrawing. And I remember thinking, doesn't she get it? She's like 1,000 years old, and I'm 23, and she is like wanting to do this kind of deer thing on the hills around her house. I'm like, I'm not going. You're going. We're getting outside. So we get outside. I'm a chain smoker. I can't even hardly stand it. And we get outside, and I can't even hardly get the first little bit of walking done. And she's like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead. I'll come back. And I said, I'm just going to sit right here. And I sat on this stump, and I was feeling really sorry for myself. I'm serious, just whining, feeling sorry for myself, just saying, who am I kidding that I could do this? Like, I could actually fit in with normal folks. That's a whole nother thing. You guys are hard. But who am I kidding? How am I going to live clean? How am I going to do any of that? And I'm sitting there, and this bluebird comes and just sits on a branch right next to me. And I'm thinking, right next to me. I could reach out and probably touch him, right? And I'm thinking, what are you doing? I'm trying to feel sorry for myself, but he's like preening himself and doing stuff, and I'm like, what's up? Like, this is crazy. And I try to go back to my thoughts, but I can't. This bird is just bugging me, right? So finally I said, because I knew that I had met God. I hadn't told anybody that yet. But I said, God, why isn't this bird afraid of me? And he said, because I take care of this bird, and I will take care of you. I promise. And I remember just crying, like, but I'm so scared. I am so scared. You guys did a dental clinic, right, at this church? What do you think Donna's husband did for a living? He was a dentist. And my I had teeth knocked out. When I got kidnapped, I got hit in the face and knocked out 2 teeth. And he said, can I fix your teeth? And I started crying because I thought, yeah. I have no money. I have no insurance. And he said, I'd like to do it as a gift. And he takes me in, and my face is rotted, right? It's not when you see an addict and they have rotten teeth, their jaw is rotted. Their face is rotted. Before their teeth start falling out, they've got rot that you can't see. And so he says, man, and I started crying. I was 23. Don't say man like that to me. What does that mean? And he said, I don't know what I can do. And then I started crying, and he said, I'll do whatever it takes. And he literally cut into my face. I asked him if I could watch it. Like, can I watch you do that? And he said, no, I'm going to cut into your face. Pretty nasty. And I said, I don't want to miss a thing. I don't know if anybody has felt like that God is doing so much that you don't want to miss anything. Like, I don't want to miss anything. And so he put a mirror up, and, and they have that big, like, rubber thing that goes all around you, and I'm looking like, this is so amazing. And right before you throw up, when you feel all clammy, that's what I felt like at that point. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be watching this. But I mean, I wanted to watch everything. I couldn't finish watching that. But he cut my face like all along the top of my gums. He scraped things out. He packed it with antibiotic stuff. He saved everything he could. And when I was done, he gave me some flipper teeth. And it was like I smiled for the first time in years. In years. I don't know if anybody could imagine what that felt like. First time in years I could walk into a room without everybody looking at me like the addict in the room, right? I could smile without covering my mouth or being ashamed. And the power that some people have when they do gifts like that was unbelievable. And then she said, I probably should end pretty soon. What time are we done? 8 o'clock, okay, good. So anyhow, a Bible study came up. And Bible study was really funny to me because when you're not a good reader and you haven't been around the Bible, when someone says we're going to study Revelations, I'd just go like, okay, go ahead. And they say, no, Revelations. No, go ahead. I'm ready. No, Revelation. So I'm not an idiot, so I realize I'm probably in the wrong place. Okay, now I'm ready. And they said, Revelations again. I said, don't make me hit you in the mouth. I'm ready. Just trust me, I'm ready. But anyhow, so they were studying righteousness by faith. And I listened, and I thought, righteousness by faith. The blood of Christ makes me clean. I couldn't even stand it. The blood of Christ makes me clean. I'm invited to the Holy of Holies because of what Jesus did. And I thought, is that true? And then one of the women, girls really, said, well, I don't feel saved. Because every once in a while, I listen to a jazz station. I thought, oh, wait, should I write this down? Like, jazz will keep you out of the kingdom. So I didn't know what to do with that, because even though what we were studying was really good news, what the people in the room were saying was really scary stuff. I spent money when I should have tithed it. I spent money. And so I just left, and I thought, man, if these guys who are so normal and so beautiful don't feel saved or loved, I am fooling myself. And so I left, just feeling really discouraged. And she came up and she said, can I tell you some stories? And I said, yeah, but I wasn't feeling that good. And she said, there's a guy named David. He ended up killing a man and sleeping with his wife. Can I have some water? And sleeping with his wife. And he went into depression for a year. And all of the things that David did, and Bathsheba and having the child and all that kind of stuff, and even told me about that he sent him to the front line and backed up so that he would be murdered. And I thought, what a scumbag, you know? And I mean, I meet people like that on the street, but he was like the king, right? And then she talked about God forgiving him. And I thought, wow, you know, that's pretty amazing. And then she said, there's another story that I think you should know. And it was about this woman that was caught in the act of adultery. And she was caught in the act of adultery. And she was pulled to Jesus' feet. She was still naked, pulled to his feet. And there was a number of people around her that were all trying to stone her to death. Apparently, in those days, if you slept around, you got stoned to death, huge stones, until you died. And I thought, well, you know, I was just grateful to be alive today. Raise your hand if you're grateful. No, I'm sorry. So I listened to the story, but what got me about this story that was so crazy is that she said that all the people were talking about her being stoned and waiting for Jesus to do something. And then he turned around and he started writing in the sand. And he was writing the sins of every person in the circle. And the only thing I could think of is, why didn't God just call him out? Right? Why didn't God call these guys out? And then I realized that God doesn't want to shame any of us. He's not in the business of shaming us. And I thought, he's not going to shame me. He's not going to shame you. And that was clear about with the circles. The forgiveness of this woman was just kind of a thing. You are the best. And so I've never had a jar of water. No, I'm good. I'm grateful. But I probably won't spill it either then. So anyhow, so I realized that God wasn't going to shame us. At one point in that whole Bible study, Donna asked me, what's the worst thing you ever did? And I explained to her about a molest that happened when I was 10. I was molested in a room with my cousins. Everybody thought my cousins were asleep, and they were not. We were all awake, and I was just really shamed by that. And Donna started crying. And I said, what are you crying for? And she said, that wasn't your fault. And I remember for the first time thinking, I don't think it was my fault. If you had given me a choice, here's a family that loves their children, a good family, or here's your family, and I love my family, but they're a mess. Pick which one you want to be raised by. Man, I would have picked the loving family, right? I didn't pick my folks. I didn't, and she just got me to think about that. And she said, one more story before we're done. I want to tell you one more story. And it's about this guy. He was ugly, really ugly. And I said, yeah? He was a mess. He was crazy. And I thought, well, what happened to him, right? He's crazy. He was ugly. He's a mess. And I'm waiting for the story, because what if he was every abuser I ever had? Because I'm wanting him to be skinned alive. Like maybe he'll be skinned alive, body parts cut off. I don't know. I was waiting for just a good ending. And she said, did I tell you he was ugly? Yes. What happened to him? And she says, he was so ugly and scary. And she told me the whole thing, right? All this stuff about him. And I'm wanting to know what happened. And she said, Jesus gets out of a boat. And she had already told me Jesus is God, part of the Trinity. And he gets out of the boat, and he starts walking in this cemetery, and this guy comes running at him, crazy, right? And she said, did I tell you he was ugly? And I said, yes. What happened to him? I think I dated that guy. And she's like, what? I said, I think I dated him. For most people, when they tell that story, I watched 300 bikers kill a 13-year-old girl. I don't know why I lived through that. I don't know what happened to the third girl. I've seen guys like this. Raise your hand if you've ever been selling drugs like at 2:30, 3:30 in the morning, looking crazy, driving down the street, drugs in the car, going faster than normal, and you get pulled over. Anybody? I saw some shoulders move. That was enough for me. So anyhow, and you get pulled over, and the guy driving starts to yell at the cop. I think, don't do that now. We're all going to prison if you do that now, right? And so I've seen that guy. I know how crazy people can get, so I want to know what happens. What happens? I want him to pay, and I want to know what happens. And I guess I was just kind of daydreaming about that, and all of a sudden, he's being cleaned up, walked to the water, and restored in his right mind for the first time ever. And I thought, no way. That is not how I wanted the story to end. That's not right. Does anybody have to say they're sorry? He didn't say, I'm sorry. He didn't say, oh, sorry if I beat you up or raped your wife or whatever. I'm sorry, right? He didn't even say that. And he's cleaned up and in his right mind. And I was just angry about that. And Donna said, you know what, most people don't know that because of all the addictions and the demonic activity in this guy's life, in his body, he couldn't even speak for himself. The demons were speaking for him. The addictions were speaking for him. And all Jesus heard was the cry of this guy's heart saying, please don't leave me like this. And I broke. I thought, man, please don't leave me like this, and understanding for the first time what forgiveness is, even when I can't say it, even when I can't respond to it, even when I've relapsed 1,000 times, Jesus is right there saying, man, just step towards me. Just step towards me. And I got it, finally got it. Donna just was amazing in my life, teaching me all kinds of stuff. When she finally confessed to me that I'm from a very judgmental background, I'm surprised that you're in my house. Anybody judgmental background? And she said, I'm surprised you're here. I don't know why I said yes. But every story you told, every day that passed, multiple times during the day, she went to the bathroom every 20 minutes. I thought she had a kidney disease. But she'd go to the bathroom and fall down on her knees and say, God, please do not let me say anything hurtful to her. Because every time she wanted to judge me, she just prayed through it. And I realized for the first time if someone spiritually fought for me, and she had done that. She told me to not leave. I could probably have stayed there as long as I wanted, but she said, when you leave, you need to find a church and start your recovery process. Finding a church was really tough because could you imagine what I looked like? I ran into a church and was like, woo! I'm here, I just found Jesus. It's been amazing. I'm telling you, it's amazing. And everybody looked at me like, oh my goodness. But that was my first journey towards recovery. And what I realized at that point is that we can all heal. And some of us don't even know the power of the blood of Christ. We're still in bondage, and we don't even know that. And some of us are afraid to go out and say the blood of Christ is powerful enough to bring you out of bondage because we feel safer in the building. Man, the world is dying. 61% of the world right now, just with their devices, are changing their neurochemistry. They're not in their frontal lobe anymore. They have no higher reasoning. They have no willpower. And we have the health message. It's just crazy to me. So I did find a church. I have 5 minutes. I'll end with this story. I was smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day. I came into the church with a little mini skirt on. I put every piece of jewelry on I owned because I wanted to impress you guys. And I ran in, and I realized that you guys were not very wealthy. Nobody had any jewelry on. So I thought, And so I would come in and sit down. I don't know why it is, but anybody have rejection issues? So I'm a rejected kid, right? My whole life, I've just wanted to sit next to someone. My whole life. I wanted someone to say, man, come sit down here. And I walk into the church, and I must have sat next to the vegan vegetarian that's allergic to the entire planet. Does anybody know that person? And I smoked like a fiend. So her throat closed. So she was scooting away from me. I have rejection issues. I thought she just didn't like me. So I kept trying to find her, trying to make it up to her next Sabbath and the next Sabbath. And she would scoot away. And then I thought, maybe it's my cigarettes. Maybe it's just my smoking. So I would smoke all the way to church. I would hide, Pastor. And then I would get to church. I'd get out and spray perfume all over so that I didn't smell like cigarettes. And then sit next to the vegan vegetarian who scooted away, because it was just too much. And so I was so ignorant for so long that it almost killed me. It almost killed her, too. But, it's like we don't know what we don't know. And so when we cover this week about addiction and recovery and how generous God is with his forgiveness and his grace, we really have to look at it on a lot of different levels. Like, who are we as a church? What addictions are we holding on to that we don't need to? We're afraid to talk to each other. Raise your hand if you know what I'm saying by then. We're afraid to talk to each other, so we stay in bondage with all kinds of stuff. Like, Sometimes I'll do a pastor's retreat and say, raise your hand if you have a sexual addiction. Some pastors will accidentally raise their hand. I thought that was just kind of, but anyhow, so it's like we don't talk to each other, and so the community knows we're not safe with each other, so we're not going to be safe with them. And so right now is a time, I believe, a time to heal from all that stuff. Heal from eating disorders and spending addictions and drug addictions and alcohol, sexual sins, all that stuff. And when we heal and when we start talking to each other more, I thought you guys were all perfect. I was in for a shock. Because we're not. None of us are. But I thought everybody was perfect and that I would step into this world and it would be difficult because nobody has done anything wrong, right? And what I realize is that's not true for any of us, but we are afraid to interact. So this week we're going to talk about addiction. We're going to talk about friendship and recovery and connection. Because the only way we're going to get well, and all the research says it, is if we start connecting with each other. It's not that if I know a lot about addiction and I can teach you, and then we're going to teach and do all that stuff this week, but teaching doesn't get us well. Raise your hand what do cigarettes cause? Cancer, lung cancer, esophageal cancers, all that kind of stuff. How about alcohol? Liver, right? How about eating disorders, bulimia? All the obesity and all that kind of stuff causes acid on your teeth. How about any addiction that I can name? You could tell me what the damage is. Most of us are overeducated on addiction, but it hasn't helped us. And most research is saying that most of our addictions are because of trauma, most of our addictions are because of external things, and the reason that we lean more to them than recovery is we're not connected anymore. And connection is what's going to bring healing. So we're going to talk about that. Any questions before I turn it over to the pastor? Questions, comments? Thank you. Okay, yes. Say that again. How long was my recovery? So far, it's been 30 years. But recovery daily. When I realized that I wasn't doing heroin anymore, God showed me that I didn't know how to trust or love. So part of my recovery is learning that. I have what's called chaotic attachment disorders. So for me to attach is difficult, and so I start healing on that. I had relationship addictions. I had to heal on that. So I think for many of us, we go from one recovery issue to another, and if we ever feel like we're done, we might be in trouble. Just like how effective is the blood of Christ in your life? Daily. If you ever walk away from that, more than likely you'll have some issues come up in your life. So we say addiction, but the Bible says sin. I think it's the same. I'm married to a guy that his dad's an ambassador for the United States, and he was a professor at the university, and I thought he was normal. Who would have guessed? But so I think that we all have stuff, and recovery is ongoing. Healing is ongoing. Anybody else? And thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to the pastor. Can I ask if anybody wants prayer? All of us? So what's your name? Caleb? Do you want prayer? Maybe not. Can I pray before I leave at the end of the week? All right, thanks. Okay, can you pray for all of us? All right.
For sure. What's happened here tonight is very important. Thank you for coming. Thank you for blessing us. And we're really looking forward to the rest of the week. Continues tomorrow night at 6:30 and through Friday evening and Saturday morning. And, bring a friend. Yes. And what happened tonight was recorded. So you can find it on our website, on our YouTube channel. You can share it with somebody, and you can bring a friend and be blessed. So thank you so much. Let's end in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for your love and that we can understand you better tonight and ourselves better, and just open our hearts and receive. For that, don't know how to say thank you enough. In Jesus' name, amen. And it's not only what's happened so far tonight, but it's the next few minutes. You know, if you came tonight and you got something here tonight that you just know is really important for you, and you don't want to let that go, feel free to linger for a few minutes. There will be a few prayers here tonight, and you can feel free to linger and connect and visit with Sheree if you'd like. And thanks for coming out. God bless.